Huge breaking news this lunchtime. Arsenal forward Kai Havertz could miss the rest of the season with a hamstring injury. Yeah, welcome along to Lunchtime Live as Mikel Arteta is hit with another major injury blow to his forward line. The thoughts of former Arsenal striker Alan Smith in just a moment. But first of all, Chief Reporter Cavi Solokol joins me now with the details. Cavi, bring us up to speed. What can you tell us?
Well, the real fear is that Kai Havertz is going to miss the rest of the season with a hamstring injury. Now, he picked up this injury during Arsenal's training camp in Dubai. But he has returned to London with the rest of the squad last night. The injury will continue to be assessed today and tomorrow, but at the moment, I think it's not looking good. And obviously, if Kai Havertz was to miss the rest of the season, it would be a big, big blow for Arsenal, because if you look at it, he's almost like their last recognised striker. Now, a lot of Arsenal supporters wanted Arsenal to sign a new striker during the January transfer window. They tried and failed to do that, but their injury list up front is, something that is really concerning, because Gabriel Martinelli is out with a hamstring injury. Gabriel Jesus is out for the season with an ACL injury. Bukayo Saka has had a long-term hamstring injury. He may well be back next month. But if Kai Havertz does miss the rest of the season, then you are scratching your head and thinking, what is Mikel Arteta going to do? What options does he really have? Now, I think we just have to wait until Friday for Arteta's news conference before their game against Leicester on Saturday for him to give us an update and confirm one way or the other whether Havertz is in fact out for the whole season.
Well, Cavi, stay there, because I'm delighted to say that former Arsenal striker Alan Smith waiting patiently to speak with us now. And Alan, I imagine this is just the worst news for Arsenal fans. Another injury for an attacker.
Yeah, I think everybody was saying, well, you can afford to lose some, but you can't afford to lose Kai Havertz now, because as Carve just said, with Jesus being out for the rest of the season, I always thought Arsenal needed a centre forward anyway, even if those boys were fit. So yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare for the Gunners that, if indeed he's going to be out for the rest of the campaign, and it's going to be a case of mixing and matching. Trossard's played as a false nine before now. He's done it this season. Raheem Sterling might have to chip in a way that he hasn't done so far. It's been really disappointing since he's come to Arsenal, Sterling. But yeah, it was going to be hard for Arsenal in this title push as it was. Now it looks nigh on impossible.
Yeah, and Cavi, let's just come back to you, because you touched on the fact that throughout the transfer window they were talking about this need to bring in a striker. They didn't bring one in. What were the reasons behind that? Why didn't Mikel Arteta bring in a striker?
Well, look, they tried to sign a striker, but obviously strikers, especially at the level required to play for Arsenal, they're very hard to come by. There's not that many strikers out there who are good enough to play for Arsenal. And the ones who are good enough to play for Arsenal typically only become available during the summer transfer window. So yes, Arsenal tried to sign a striker. Everybody knows they made a £40 million bid, which was rejected by Aston Villa for Ollie Watkins. But I think apart from that, there are lots of moving parts when it comes to transfers. There may well have been people at Arsenal behind the scenes who were pushing harder for them to sign a striker, but then there will have been other voices saying, hey, hold on a second, aren't we better off waiting until the summer when we can get our number one or number two target, rather than trying to sign someone who may be available now? Hindsight is a wonderful thing. Yes, of course, if the people in power at Arsenal had known last month that Kai Havertz was going to be injured and could potentially miss the rest of the season, maybe they would have tried even harder to sign a striker. Because if you're an Arsenal fan at the moment, you're looking at this and thinking, wow, we're second in the Premier League. We've got a chance of winning the Champions League as well, and it could all turn to dust because we don't have a recognised striker because of all these injuries and because of the fact that we didn't sign anybody in January.
And Alan, Cavi used that word hindsight there. I mean, hindsight is a fantastic thing, but how much could this actually cost Arsenal now?
Yeah, I mean, for this season, you're wondering with what they've got, how they're going to make a success of it. As I just said, it was always an outside chance that they could reel in Liverpool. Now it looks pretty much impossible. Champions League as well looks really difficult. Go back to the fact that Man City won the league without a centre forward, but I think they had a little bit more in reserve than Arsenal have got now. So it's a key point in the season, maybe a point that has just ended hope, optimism. But yeah, as Cave said, there aren't the players out there. You don't want to be loading your wage bill with inferior players. That's the last thing you need as a football club. We've seen it happen sometimes that an out-of-contract player who hasn't got a club can be signed outside the transfer window, but is he going to be of the right quality? Probably not. So it's a really tough one now for Arteta, and he's got to be really creative in how he sets up in terms of his attack.
And Alan, Cave was also mentioning that, you know, it's not that easy when it comes to signing players. They wanted to bring in a striker. There might have been other voices speaking. Do ownership need to take a bit of blame for this?
No, I don't think so. I mean, listen, the Ollie Watkins bid seemed a strange one to me. Maybe a little bit of desperation in it, a bit of a cheeky bid to prize an Arsenal fan away from Villa. But, you know, in transfer windows gone by, they've been really organised. Arsenal with Edu at the top of it, working closely with Arteta. Quite often they've signed players that you've not really heard have been connected to the club. It's been very efficient. So, yeah, and getting strikers is the hardest job of them all because everybody wants one, somebody that can knock in 20 goals. So that's the difficult they've found themselves in. And it will be questioned now of the summer and who they can bring in to improve that squad. For now, they've just got to get on with it and hope that they can get by. But yeah, big uphill task.
Enough to get by through the next few weeks. The likes of Bukayo Saka, Gabriel Martinelli, they are coming back in March. You mentioned potential players playing as a false nine, reports suggesting Mikel Merino could actually play as a false nine. Do you think that they do have enough to get through?
Probably not. Probably not. Trossard's done quite well sometimes in that tree. So players have got to step up, haven't they? I mentioned Sterling, you know, there might be a role for him going forward. He's been a huge disappointment. But now Arteta will be scratching his head, talking with his coaches and wondering the way forward. They're at Leicester at the weekend, and you would hope against my other old side, maybe they've got enough, whatever kind of forward line that they can put out there. But in the big games coming up, it's going to be hard, yeah.
You know, one thing I would say is I don't think it's all doom and gloom for Arsenal. I totally understand what Alan is saying. It's going to be very difficult for them to win the title now. But I don't think it's mission impossible. You know, people thought back in 1989 that it was mission impossible when Arsenal needed to go to Liverpool and win 2-0 the last game of the season to win the title. Everyone said that simply can't happen. Liverpool are not going to lose 2-0 at home. Alan was on the pitch that day. He scored. Michael Thomas scored. Arsenal won 2-0 and they won the most incredible title. So I wouldn't rule Arsenal out of the Premier League title race just yet. Yes, of course, it's going to be very, very difficult. But I, for what it's worth, still think that Arsenal have a chance of pulling off what would be, you know, something that a lot of people would say at the moment is impossible.
Yeah, because just looking at the next 7 fixtures there as well, Alan, do you agree with what Cavi's saying there, that they're not out of things?
Well, no, mathematically they're not. Of course they're not, and Cave's right. I mean, listen, Anfield 89, it was 90 minutes, and miracles can happen over that time. Over a longer period, it gets harder. Of course it does. You can never say never in football. We've seen shocks happen so often in the past. Liverpool don't look like slipping up at the moment, do they, despite going out the cup? And look at the striking options they've got. I mean, they're the envy of so many clubs in Europe, so many different options. So, no, they've just got to keep going, Joe. Just got to keep going. If they can get a win at the weekend, and then it's step by step, and just see if they can continue to ask the questions of Liverpool by keeping on winning. I mean, if they could keep on winning, it would be a major feather in the cap of Arteta as a coach to get the best out of the players that he's got available.
Now, Alan, Cavi gave you a name check there of when you were on the pitch. Mikel Arteta got you on speed dial by any chance?
Yeah, the old ankles won't survive that. But these stories are worth harking back to sometimes, in terms of nobody in the country fancied us on that evening. Nobody will be fancying Arsenal now to do much at all in the league or in the Champions League. So you've got to keep the faith, Joe. Simple as that.
A pleasure to have you again. Great to get your thoughts, and Cavi Solical as well. Thank you very much.